Some gardeners, absolutely swear by compost pits. Others dig trenches, bury their kitchen scraps, or even build these towering compost cages. But after years of experimenting, there was, one test that completely changed the way I build soil, because it exposed exactly what works beneath the surface and what only looks good on paper. For the first minute, the message is simple. If you've been fighting compacted beds, struggling with inconsistent moisture, or watching organic matter disappear faster than you can replace it, the answer may not be more compost at all. The test that changed everything involved two materials most gardeners overlook or underestimate: biochar and cardboard. Not in theory, not in a laboratory, but side by side, buried in living beds and observed over months. What happened in those beds? Well, it shifted my entire approach to soil building. The experiment began by comparing long-term soil structure changes. The first lesson came from what happened underground, not at the surface. Cardboard is usually treated as a temporary mulch, something to smother weeds or feed worms. Biochar, on the other hand, is often treated as a specialty additive reserved for serious growers. I wanted to see what these two materials would do over time when added directly into the soil, instead of layered on top. Cardboard breaks down quickly, drawing nitrogen as it decomposes, releasing carbon and creating a soft sponge-like zone full of fungal threads. Biochar behaves differently. It doesn't decompose, it stays in the soil for decades, holding on to nutrients and water like a mineral sponge. When the season ended, the cardboard-treated bed had looser structure, but also noticeable nitrogen drawdown. The biochar-treated bed had firmer but far more enriched soil, because nutrients that would have washed away were locked into the char. Decomposition speed revealed why both materials influence microbes differently. Cardboard feeds decomposers aggressively and immediately. Within weeks, earthworms shredded the sheets into long fibres, and fungi colonized the layers. But this burst of life came at a cost. Because cardboard is carbon-heavy, the decomposition process temporarily pulls nitrogen from the soil. Plants growing nearby showed slower early growth, because microbes were competing for nitrogen. Biochar, however, didn't take anything from the soil. In fact, when primed with compost tea before use, the char acted as a microbial hotel, creating a habitat instead of a feast. Every pore of the char held onto microbes, moisture and nutrients. This allowed plant roots to tap into a stable reservoir instead of chasing nutrients through the soil profile. After a full season, biochar created a longer, lasting biological footprint, where microbial populations stayed active even during dry spells. Moisture retention told the story of durability versus rapid cycling. This part of the test produced the most dramatic difference. Cardboard absorbed moisture, softened, and slowly collapsed into a humus-rich layer. But once it decomposed, its water-holding benefits disappeared. Beds treated with cardboard needed more frequent watering later in the season. Biochar, by contrast, behaved like a permanent moisture regulator. Even during drought periods, the soil with biochar stayed noticeably cooler and damp deeper down. Its pore structure held water during heavy rains and slowly released it back into the soil. This consistency made an enormous difference in root development. Plants in the biochar bed sent roots deeper and held onto moisture longer. Beds with cardboard had shallow fibrous root systems, because moisture was concentrated near the surface for most of the decomposition period. Nutrient retention showed why biochar outperforms cardboard for long-term soil building. Cardboard releases nutrients only after its fibers break down and fungi consume them. That means nutrient release is tied to decomposition speed and temperature. During cold spells, nutrient release slows dramatically. Now, biochar doesn't actually decompose, so its ability to retain nutrients isn't really affected by temperature or, microbial activity. Once you've charged it up with nutrients, it becomes this long-term reservoir, holding on to those valuable elements for seasons to come. In our little test, the biochar bed managed to hold on to calcium, potassium and magnesium much more efficiently. Even nitrogen losses were, significantly reduced. When those spring rains eventually arrived, the cardboard bed suffered from quite a bit of leaching, whereas the biochar bed stayed remarkably stable. So what this means is that any amendments you add early in the season remain available for much longer, and you won't need to top up with fertilizer halfway through. Let's talk about some practical steps for applying biochar and cardboard in real garden beds. Gardeners can, use both materials quite effectively, but it's important to understand their strengths. Cardboard is best used as a short-term soil softener. For instance, lining the bottom of a new raised bed with cardboard creates a lovely fungal-rich layer that helps break up the ground below and gives the worms something to munch on. Now, to avoid nitrogen drawdown, you should always add a nitrogen-rich material on top, such as grass clippings or, fresh manure. Biochar requires a bit of preparation before use. You see, raw char can actually pull nutrients from your plants, so it must be charged with compost, worm tea, or, say, aged manure. Mix the charged biochar directly into the top 4 to 6 inches of the bed. It will stabilize moisture, protect soil microbes, and, support long-term fertility. In regions with heavy rains, biochar provides insurance against nutrient loss. And in regions with drought or harsh dry seasons, it provides deep hydration support even when irrigation becomes, inconsistent. The combined method may be the most powerful approach of all. What surprised me most was what happened when I used both materials in the same bed. A slow, decomposing layer of cardboard at the surface fed microbes early in the season. Beneath that, a zone enriched with biochar provided long-term nutrient and moisture stability. The cardboard fed the bed. The biochar preserved what the cardboard released. This method produced soil that stayed loose, dark, and alive long after the test ended. It eliminated the need for compost pits entirely. Instead of burying organic matter in trenches or piles, the soil became its own engine of decomposition and nutrient retention. If you want soil that stays healthy season after season, this simple test is worth trying in your own garden. It changed the way I build soil, and it can do the same for you. If this guide helped you rethink how to improve your beds, subscribe to Hydro Haven, share the video and support the channel so we can continue bringing tested, practical knowledge straight from the field to your garden.